Hey everybody, welcome to my deliverable. This is my SLAM project video, just explaining how I did the process, how I got the information, how I got the analysis. So I guess to start out with the 64,000 customers. First off, I got the data from the data set itself, implemented all the data loading, the direct analytics file to make sure what it was, data info, data describe, data visit, just a couple of understanding the data. Then I replaced the data for history segment 1 through 7 so I can be able to make it countable and do analysis on it. I also did that with zip code, channel, and segment. Then changed all the objects to numerals so I was able to do analysis in the future for it. I saved this called as transform CSV so I could do it in another IPython notebook. And I saved a second one called transform drop, which this is the one I'm going to be using for my IPython analysis, the first one. I also did some data visualization during this. I did correlation analysis just to get a general idea for the data, general visit count for the data, conversion count, and just so forth. As you can see, it's just general understanding what data I'm given, trying to figure out what I'm going to do with data to answer the questions. And I just gave general explaining what I do with the stuff. And then I have some visual graphs just to show some examples. For example, segment per channel, how much segments per channel was each email given to, or a segment per zip code. So segment for zip code 1, segment for zip code 2, segment for zip code 3, general visit per spending, and you could just check these out yourself if you want. It's more of the general questions by visit. Before I ended the first this part, I also added made dummy variables for segment, channel, and zip code, so I could do the coordination and model building analysis. And I say that as T-dummy or T-dummy drop history. So I'm going to go into my questions and analysis now, which is generally this. This right here is just my final analysis, which you'll see in my website for the recommendations. So I imported all the data applications that I needed to start off, and I started off with DF the general model building, which DF2 is dummy drop, while DF is the regular transform history that I showed you earlier. So I start out with the feature importance just to see what features I'm going to be using specifically for my model. And as you can see here, I did that. For question 1, I generally found out that I did by count and sum to figure out how much the men's segment did better than the women's segment, and to do the analysis on that. Then incremental cells, I did a graph, and then I just found the average for each of them and just posted the answer on here. For question 3 and 4, it was basically using the recency and history segment, the two biggest segments, which were the biggest determinators in determining whether or not the visit would have occurred or not. So the least recency and least history segment of spending were the most significant. Question 5 and question 6, I generally did correlations and sums for that to figure out generally which ones, how the men's usually did better, 100, 300 visits per segment compared to the women's. And I just generally put my results for that. Same with question 6 about how visit conversion and spending, how the men's did well enough for all three of them. Question 7, did I observe any anomalies? I have to say zip code in channel 2 were seemingly have the least amount of customers within it. And that's interesting because they did have some of the best results compared to the other zip codes and channels. So I was kind of surprised about that. Question 8, which audience would I target the men's to? As you can see here, I would just base it on correlation results and recency and history segment. Question 9 is what I showed you earlier, just the important features of the variables. Then question 10, for class prediction algorithms, I did decision tree, tested sets, I did logistic regression, I did KNN. Out of the totals, the best score that came up with it was for the X-train set for the decision tree ROC, which a 72%, which in general is a pretty good model for this unsportsmanlike model. And then for extra questions to explore, as you can see, I thought about possibly in the future making a spending segment like I did history segment, so I could be able to analyze the spend a lot better. Well, this is my presentation. Hope you enjoy it.